Hi, I'm Mick Conroy from Modern English, and you're listening to Jim and Mike Talk Music.
Today we have a special guest. He's one of the co-founders of the 1980s new wave band Modern English. They had a big hit in the US back in 1983 with the song I Melt With You. He also performed with the band Lush, and in 2018 he formed the band Piroshka with Lush lead singer MICK CONROY. Let's welcome to Jim and Mike Talk Music, Mr. MICK CONROY.
And the crowd goes wild.
How are you today?
I'm very good, thank you.
Yes. So
I'm in upstate New York. We've been to a barn sale and tag sales and all that stuff. You know, doing a Saturday morning stuff. So it's all good.
Yeah, good weather for that.
I was going to ask you about New Jersey.
Yes, yeah. Well, I haven't been to New Jersey for. We were there about a month ago.
Oh, okay.
Seeing a friend.
Okay.
West Orange.
So are you living in New York right now, New York State?
Yes, I'm upstate in Columbia County. It's very nice. It took me. I mean, I got here about 2 months ago from kind of like half in England, half here at the same time.
So let's talk about your early days in music. You were born in England in the early 60s in Colchester, Essex, England, correct?
That's where the band... I was actually, get this, I was born in Aden in southern Yemen, Yemen, which my dad was in the army, but we ended up in Colchester, which coincided with the birth of punk rock, which was quite handy, which meant that anyone that fancied themselves could pick up a guitar. And if you could play 2 chords, that was enough to get you into a group.
Yeah.
In fact, 1 chord was enough to get into a group.
It's about the attitude. So born in Yemen, you have citizenship where then, in the UK?
UK and Ireland.
So what kind of music were you listening to when you were young, like a teenager?
Slade, Slade, Deep Purple.
Slade.
Deep Purple.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was. Okay. Slade were my favourite band, and then it didn't take long. You know, Alice Cooper. Stuff like that. Kind of like English. Bands that were quite popular in England. Then of course David Bowie. David Bowie was a consistent thing, and Roxy Music. I used to, David Bowie and Roxy Music were when I was kind of like had enough money, or it was Christmas. If I got LPs, it would be David Bowie. My first record I had was Aladdin Sane, the Bowie album, and Genie Driving Saturday and all of them. But I had an older brother who was into Yes and Genesis, and ELP, kind of like the
Emerson, Lake and Palmer.
Oh yeah, and crazy triple albums, and record sleeves, and then me and my brother, we went to a boarding school in England, and it was quite a musical school, but there weren't that many kids there. It was about 360 boys. So it was everyone was into music. You'd go around to other mates. They lived in other dormitories, and there'd be a group of people that were into only Motown. So you'd hear kind of like Diana Ross, Marvin Gaye, and kind of like, more dance type music. Then there'd be people that were only into funk. So it'd be like, all we'd hear is brass construction and stuff. And then there'd be like heavy metal people, like Led Zeppelin and, Black Sabbath. I mean, I did have Masters of Reality when I was about 12.
Yeah.
Which was pretty out there. I'd listen to Masters of Reality and then, Nursery Crimes by Genesis, and then listen to David Live. When you were that young, you were still kind of exploring. And then Velvet Underground and Lou Reed. Lou Reed had a great big hit, Walk on the Wild Side, that was produced by David Bowie and Mick Ronson. So anything that David Bowie had anything to do with, like Mott the Hoople as well, all the young dudes. So then I got into Mott the Hoople as well.
A lot of the ones you mentioned, especially early on when you mentioned Roxy Music and David Bowie, and now Lou Reed, it's a lot of cutting edge. They are definitely doing what they want. They're putting that out there. I mean, for sure. Yeah.
When I first heard Walk on the Wild Side, it really was like one of those moments where you think, what the hell's going on here? What's happening? And around about the same time, Autobahn by Kraftwerk, who, when I first heard that, when I first heard that, it was a similar kind of thing. It was like, there's no guitars and the drums sound really weird.
Cutting edge, industrial and such. And I think we all go, everybody goes through this progression. Jim and I were into, I was into the Zeppelin and Pink Floyd and then Aerosmith, Boston, and, just all that, and then you get turned on to something else. Like you said, you hear Walk on the Wild Side and you're like, what? What's he saying?
Were the stations playing like Kraftwerk, or you were out exploring, buying albums, or friends turned you on to?
In England at that time, there was a radio. There was two stations. There was one called Radio Luxembourg, which was kind of like pop-ish, but they'd play album tracks all the time. And then there was what was called the pirate station called Radio Caroline. I don't know if you've ever heard of that station.
I've heard of Radio.
It was Radio Caroline was really before punk rock happened. That was where you'd hear they'd play like side 2 of Tales of a Topographic Ocean, by Yes, and then they'd play a whole side of ELP. And so there was this station, but also there was this guy John Peel, who you probably heard, an English DJ. He would always play 10 o'clock to midnight. He would always play kind of like music that was, when you were a kid, everything was like brand new. You'd never heard. I mean, he'd play Funkadelic and Parliament, and then play lots of Sly and reggae stuff as well. So you kind of like, you'd listen to stuff and wait for him to play something that you might have even heard before. And, quite often it was all stuff that
a whole buffet of music to try. Yeah,
completely. I mean, John Peel, when previously he really championed Mark Bolan as well, T-Rex, who was produced by. There's a Bowie connection there. Him and Bowie were mates, and Tony Visconti, who produced like the best Bowie albums, also produced the really early T-Rex, Tyrannosaurus Rex records. Even though Tony Visconti was an American, he moved to London in the early 70s, and he was like he was out looking for new bands to record and produce as well. So anything that had Tony Visconti's name on it was, in those days, you'd look at the back of the record sleeve to see the credits, who played the cello on the record even, you'd want all the information possible.
And that's what we missed, especially with streaming. We're missing that. And now getting back to vinyl, it isn't just about the cover artwork. It's like you said, who played cello on track 4? Who was that? Oh, there it is. We missed that for a while.
Maybe eventually they'll add that, Apple Music just added lyrics.
Yeah,
you can click on and the lyrics will come up.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
So maybe eventually they'll add.
I know. I've been discovering that lately. It's like you kind of accidentally touch your iPad and suddenly you've got lyrics.
Oh, yeah, there it is.
Yeah, so you can sing along.
Do you know?
Cool.
Yesterday I was just. Have you heard of My Bloody Valentine?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've heard of them.
Okay, right. So I was listening to their their second album yesterday, and the lyrics are, you've got no idea. They could be singing, what the ingredients of cornflakes are, But I accidentally pressed the lyric thing and it had all the words coming up, and I was thinking, oh, that's what they're possibly saying.
Just probably a month or so ago, on one of our podcasts, we were talking about the top hits from 50 years ago. And so, I thought David Bowie was scatting on Golden Years. And I thought he was doing a little scat there, because it was an early album, a 45 that I had when I was one of my first albums ever. Let's see, Jim, was it Come But Up My Baby? Yeah.
I don't remember.
I thought he was just scatting, but it's something like come something my baby, but I thought he was just come but up. Yeah, it's like there it is.
There's
in the lyrics,
words in there.
Yeah, there's actual words. Golden Years. Yeah, so interesting. So you're talking about some early times here. So I'm thinking about the first band you were in and how or how Modern English's first, the Lepers, were they the Lepers first and then you joined them? Is that right?
Well, they were the Lepers, and right. I joined them whilst they were still the Lepers.
Okay.
So I was a leper as well. By this time, punk rock had kind of, Sex Pistols and The Clash and all of that had, they'd all released their first albums. And then there was bands like, Susie and the Banshees and Wire. Mm-hmm. And and Joy Division and Bauhaus, who were coming along, who were kind of like he joined. They joined bands when punk rock was happening, and of course you learn how to play your instruments a bit more, and you kind of tune up as well. So and our path changed. We kind of like wanted to be, we wanted to keep ourselves more interested. Playing punk rock wasn't going to last more than a year.
Yeah.
So I mean, we still had we were either on the dole or had jobs. We recorded our first bunch of demos, and when we went into the studio, we were called the Lepers, and what we recorded was completely and utterly punk rock. It was kind of like quite experimental.
Mm-hmm.
And we thought, well, we've got to change. We've got to come up with a name. Basically, it was we were like brainstorming, which we didn't know it was called brainstorming at the time. In those days, it was called arguing. And so
we call it brainstorming here in the US. Yeah.
We called it. We ended up with the name Modern English. We sent loads of demo tapes. John Peel, actually, we sent a demo tape to. Then we did our first single on our own, Drowning Man, which was, I mean, if you listen to it quite, more than 2 times, you'll realise that we didn't tune up before we recorded it.
That sounded good. Let's go.
But then we got a reply from Beggars Banquets, 2 guys that worked there, who had Gary Newman, who was like a major pop star.
Oh yeah, and cutting edge, 79 and 80,
yeah. But then these 2 guys that worked in the record, they owned a record shop as well, Beggars Banquet. They started their own label, 4AD, and they responded to us, and we, they were really nice people, and basically we, they wanted to put out a record by us, and then we were like, great, we'd love it. That's what we want to do, put records out.
And at that point, your sound was still a punk hard edge sound, mixed with some other things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, one of our friends worked in a record shop, and he seemed to know a lot about music. And we said to him, if you buy a van and a keyboard, you can join our band.
Yeah, there you go. For our listeners and those who are, exploring music history, because, we've got listeners young and old, but, this is the beginning of the new wave. It's what are you doing after punk? And this new wave comes, and hence the moniker. Yeah.
The first album, that was 1979. Well, that's when you got signed to the record label, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now that Mesh and Lace, I think that sounds like an experimental album.
But it was still more accessible than what you were doing before. Is that what you're saying?
I mean, it's not punk, but there's a lot of different sound effects. Yeah. You're trying out all kinds of stuff on that album. I mean, the one song, Grief, I think that's unique because the vocals don't come in until like 4 minutes into the song.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not typical. I wanted to say something about that. He's traveling. Our listeners, we're getting a tour of the kitchen. Very cool. Very cool.
Oh, sorry. I'm moving because it might be a better reception at this end of the table. Tiny delay, but now.
Yeah.
Okay. Sound better.
The first album, I believe it's the first one that we're talking about here, Mesh and Lace. I thought it was courageous. It was pretty wild to start the first song on the first album out with a tempo changing. I'm listening to it, and it starts speeding up within 1 minute. I think the first minute or second minute, we heard that. And what's up with that? You're laughing.
Yeah, we didn't mean to. we didn't have a click track or anything like that. It was just kind of like
so
it was. Do you know what? I don't even think we really noticed until like later on. Yeah, we just wanted it to have be energetic.
Yeah,
and that we did. I mean, we didn't have much time to record that LP, so it was. And in those days, we'd try and record everything live, like in the same room.
Okay.
Yes.
And but we rehearse all of the songs, so we kind of thought we've got 5 takes, So we've got to get it right.
Right.
And it was almost like if everyone played the right part in the right section, that was a win for us. And then, if it sped up and slowed down, it didn't really matter.
Yeah.
It sounded, if it had energy going for it, we'd say that's good enough.
Right.
If it sounds noisy and raucous and it has, feeling as well.
Right. And the first song, it did keep a good tempo and kept going consistent. And so, it's an interesting thing to try, and there it worked. You sped up and you kept it that way. So, it worked.
Mm-hmm. Were those songs that you already you were playing out live, or did you write some of them in the studio?
No, pretty much all of those songs we played live. I mean, it was like your first album is basically your kind of like 2 years worth of songs.
Oh yeah,
everything you got.
Yeah. And we did have one or two but the studio dates got put back by about 2 weeks, and so we thought, well, let's try and write some more songs. I can't remember exactly which ones they were, but we did. There were a few there. Like, I think Grief was might have been a late addition as well.
So now your second album, even though it was you were signed to 4AD, right?
Uh-huh.
But in the US, it was released by Sire Records. Yeah. And Sire had The Cure, Depeche Mode, and even Madonna, thrown in there. So now the second album was a little different than the first album, and Robbie Grey is quoted as saying, "We used to think God will never make a pop record. We're artists, but things don't always turn out as you planned. And when you actually create a pop record, it's so much more of a thrill than anything else."
Yeah. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, we for the second album, we approached Hugh Jones, who had produced just recently. At that time, produced Heaven Up Here by Echo and the Bunnymen, which was a great record. And he'd also worked with Steve Hillage, who did quite a few Simple Minds LPs from before they became mega famous, in England. But they all sounded so amazing, the sounds. And with Hugh, we did about the opposite to Mesh and Lace. We actually worked with Hugh in rehearsals. We deconstructed all of the songs and put them back together again. And, in some cases, we'd take out a section from one song and put that in a different song completely. And so the whole thing was like edited together and taken apart and re-edited together before we got into the studio. And with I Melt With You, he said, "Have you got any more songs, that we need to look at?" And I said, "Well, there's this one thing we've got kicking around, but I think it sounds a bit too poppy anyway." And we played it to him, and Hugh said, "You're out of your mind. We've got to work on this song." And then we just carried on. But when we recorded the LP, I mean, that wasn't one of the most kind of like the best songs, most interesting songs for us to work on. It. We considered it to be part of the album, but a bit kind of like Bird's REM, Radio Free Europe type, kind of feel to it. We had no idea what was going to happen. Absolutely no clue whatsoever. Then the reason it came out on Sire was because, Sire had Talking Heads and the Ramones, two of my favorite bands as well. So, I thought, well, what a cool label to be on. And funny you should mention Madonna. I saw her first public performance as Madonna on Sire at Danceteria. And she did Everybody Come and Dance With Me, I think, with a couple of dancers. She mimed as well.
It's like the opposite of scatting. It's miming.
Yeah. Or lip syncing.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. It's great to hear your love for all these other bands too. And like you said, Talking Heads and REM. And, Jim and I have had all the other bands that you've mentioned. We've had them on vinyl as well. And it's a great connection. Great to hear what it's like in the studio. So for that second album, just really taking it apart, putting things back together again. Yeah, that's very interesting.
With a click.
Yes. Yeah.
So the song "I Melt with You," which if anybody doesn't know this song,
yeah,
I don't know where you've been, but.
Dream of better lives, the kind which never hate. Trapped in a state of imaginary grace. I made a pilgrimage to save this human race. Never comprehending the race had long gone by. I'll stop the world and note with you. You've seen the difference and it's getting better all the time. There's nothing you and I won't do. I'll stop the world and melt with you.
Is this a song that you felt could be a hit, or did this stand out over all the other songs, or did it just happen?
It was well, no, it can't. We went to Wales, Rockfield Studios in Wales. It's the oldest where Zeppelin recorded a lot of stuff, and we were away for 6 weeks, and we were like in a cocoon in a bubble,
Right, doing that
and
recording.
and then when we got back to London, we we played it to some friends, and some people were a bit like, "Oh, this is a bit poppy, isn't it?"
Mm-hmm.
And other people were like, one of my two people in particular were when they first heard it, they thought, "Wow, this is incredible! It's like it sounds like you lot learned how to write songs suddenly."
Well, it's not always the most interesting songs that make the hits. "I Melt with You" is, boom, click, boom, click, boom, click. People they like that. There's a certain boom, click tempo. Yeah, that's like, yeah, okay, I like this. But it's not that interesting. Wild drumming and interesting. Bass solo. But it's sure, you flow around, you're flowing around on the bass and people are hearing that, I think, but yeah, you didn't. It's a surprise to you. It's so interesting that the number one hit there is a surprise.
We had no idea.
Yeah, no idea.
Now, do you know this song is ranked at number 39 on VH1's Top 100 Greatest Songs of the 80s?
Cool.
Really? I thought you were going to.
It's number 30.
I thought you were going to say the greatest one-hit wonders of the 80s.
No. That's a terrible phrase, isn't it?
But this song has a life of its own. And,
yes.
I have to tell you.
Tell us about it, Jim. This song is it's
I've always loved this song. I mean, whenever you hear it, you obviously think of the 80s. But it's a song that you can't get out of your head either. And it's a good thing because it's a good song. When you can't get a bad song out of your head.
Yeah. We won't mention the unmentionables.
But this song has lived on in that. I mean, it was in Valley Girl, which was a while ago, but Stranger Things. And just a week or two ago, it was on Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist.
Do you know that, Mick?
Yeah.
In the season finale.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
You saw that.
I know. Well, yeah. I mean, Robbie's back in England, and I, me and him were, messengering and all that. And I said to Rob, it's quite a big deal, Robbie. It's in USA Today and TV Insider magazine.
Yeah, it came up on my phone. I'm looking and I'm thinking about Mick. It's on my phone right there. Yeah, it's very cool.
I mean, you guys did a better job than she did. I mean, some of the people on that show. Do you watch that show though, or
Jim watches all the time? I just catch a little bit, but
I watched it from the beginning. So.
Oh, really? Yeah. No, I have to confess that I haven't. I'm not a follower of that show.
It's an interesting show. She hears what people are thinking, but in a song, like Time Stops.
Mm-hmm.
But the finale, and spoiler alert, is that
spoiler alert.
For the first time, her ex-boyfriend, sort of on off, he can hear her singing this song.
And that's different.
She's not just singing the song, like nobody else can hear it but him, which is odd. So now he's got the power.
Oh.
through I Melt With You.
Yeah.
You know?
No.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And that was the
bloke.
grand finale. Yeah.
I know. I mean, it was. Yeah. I mean, that song has a life of its own.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, it's like something that we created. I mean, people say, you hear it all the time. You know, it's like it's you know, it's out there now without sounding too much like a hippie. You know, it's everyone's song now, really.
I'm thinking about being out at clubs and being a young adult, and you know, that song comes on along with some others, because you know, if you're in a cool new wave alternative club versus just the regular pop clubs, I don't know what year this would be. I guess it'd be 1985 or
83.
something. Yeah. No, I don't mean when it come out.
Oh,
but
okay.
yeah, I mean, you know, playing the song in clubs and stuff, and you know, that would get people out on the dance floor. You know, there's just, you know, one, you know, you can sit back and listen to and talk to somebody, or you can get out there and dance. And I think it brought the people out. Let's switch over to, if I can, playing live. You were, what do you have any a story from a time you were out playing live? Something a little bit we haven't heard before. Anything like that?
Well, I mean, this is kind of like going back to that period. So, I mean, when we were in England and Europe, we were pretty much seen as like a 4AD type band. So there was like us, the Cocteau Twins, the Birthday Party, which was Nick Cave's band, and Bauhaus. And so the audiences were, it's almost like if you could imagine Lisa Simpson, you know, in a beret and a cigarette, being very cool.
Yes.
You know, like that kind of thing. And then we came to Florida to play this thing called Spring Break that we'd never heard of.
Yeah,
Fort Lauderdale. Yeah.
And, yeah.
And that's different. That's very different then.
Yeah.
You know,
And we'd previously played in London at the Institute for Contemporary Arts. Sounds very grand. And so we did the same set in Daytona Beach. So I Melt With You was like the fifth song in the sets.
Yeah.
And so we were playing, you know, our doom and gloomy type stuff.
Yeah.
And then we played I Melt With You, and the entire place went completely insane. You know,
right. I can picture.
We'd never seen anything like it before in, you know, ever.
Yeah.
And me and Robbie were just dumbstruck.
Yeah.
You know, we were like staring at each other like, what the hell?
Yeah.
And Jim and I can imagine that, because, you know, Jim and I lived that. And so we can imagine that the general population, because you are not, that is not an alternative new wave punk crowd. You have about 3/4 of them being pop, being just in, you know, they just want to know the latest dance and Paula Abdul and Madonna and Michael Jackson. And so about 1/4 of them would know some what we used to call really cool music, you know. And so that's you got 3/4 of them up knowing, I know this song. I know this song. Yeah. That is so cool.
It was, I mean, yeah. So it has to be said that after that night, we put I Melt With You at the end of the set.
Yeah.
To tease them, make them wait. Delayed gratification, kiddos.
Yeah. Well, you know, kind of like, you know, here's another song off our new album, kind of like, and then blah, blah.
Now, was that your first time touring the U.S.?
No, that was our. Well, it's like Mike was just saying, you know, there was like the cooler people that listened to WLIR, you know, in Long Island, and then there'd be stations in Boston. We did 2 tours of the East Coast, you know, like Boston to Washington, D.C. After the snow came out. So, and it was only for people that were hardcore 4AD, people that would buy imports and, you know, really, you know, listen, you know, look hard for, you know, what was happening in England kind of people.
Did you tour for your first album, though? Or did the second album Is that when you first toured the US to support the second album?
No. We did Mesh and Lace. We did an East Coast tour.
Oh, okay.
In I mean, it was, there weren't that many people at the gigs, I can safely say.
Yeah.
But but the ones that were there were kind of like die hard full AD people, and people that were going to see any English band.
Yeah. And this is the time of, you're promoted by the cool record shops, the great record stores. There's the mom and pop, well, not exactly, but, mom and pop's son has a cool record store. Yeah. But then also college radio, it was in the US. It was, I didn't hear of a good commercial radio station playing great stuff till KROQ, I think it was in near LA, because it was throughout the whole mid 80s, it was just college radio playing great stuff, great colleges, people putting out some really good stuff. So that's how, for our listeners, wondering what's going on in this time in the mid 80s. That's what's happening. So that's where you'd be heard. So it'd have to be, you're playing these gigs, and every dozen people that get out there to listen to college radio.
Yeah, they're not listening to the classic rock.
Yeah.
Oh, it's now the classic.
It was called rock. Yeah.
I mean, we have a station here in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. We're in New Jersey, but it's close by. But I'm telling you, you put the radio on, and it's like they have the same 50 songs. I don't know how they're still going.
But it is the same. It is the same 50 songs from 40 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What were you going to say, Mick? You had something there.
Yeah. About college radio. I mean, on the first trip we made to America, in our van, we only had an AM radio on the in the van. So
I'm sorry to hear that.
Was Stairway to Heaven. So it was only the second time round that we discovered like FM radio and college stations. So, we weren't sure what was going on either first time we came to America.
Modern English it's not just a new wave band, because I noticed some other influences, musical influences. And just the other day, there's a song, it's on Everything Is Mad. I don't know. Are you on that album? Okay.
No.
Okay.
Is that a good thing, Jim?
But do you know the song "I Can't Breathe"?
I have heard it a couple of times.
I'm only asking because if you aren't on the album, you might not. If you don't play the song live or something, you might not know it.
No. We don't play any of that live. I can't breathe. Yeah. It's like all the trees are brown, like that.
When I first listened to it, I thought it was another song. It sounds exactly like the Everly Brothers. Kathy's Clown.
Okay,
but since you're not on the album, I guess you probably don't know much about if that was a coincidence.
No. I don't know. Is how sometimes, I mean, there is 2 albums that me and Rob I was playing with other groups at the time.
Yeah.
And Robbie continued. Okay. And he made 2 records, I think. And we that particular album you just mentioned, Robbie never ever mentions it.
Okay. Well, maybe this other song too is on. I was surprised because Modern English does "Game of Love," which is a '60s song.
Yeah, not Santana. That's not the Santana.
Wayne Fontana and the Mindbenders song, "Game of Love."
Okay.
Yeah, so I thought that was interesting. You don't hear many, I don't think, new wave, like you don't hear Depeche Mode doing, 60s songs. I don't know.
Right.
Anyway.
I mean, Robbie has his musical tastes, quite eclectic as well.
Okay.
Some days he'll only be into punk rock, and other days he'll only be into 10cc.
Okay, that's cool. When you perform live, do you work in any cover songs, or is it all modern English?
Well, we did Gene Genie on one tour. When Bowie died, it was like everyone and their dog doing a Bowie song. So Yeah, that's about the only cover that we've done, really. We don't do covers.
Yeah.
It's too much hard work.
Yeah.
If you try and do a cover song, there's always someone in the audience that says that's actually an E flat minor they've usually been playing.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
Tell us a little about this 80s cruise. It's next March. Have you done the cruise before?
Yeah.
Okay.
We did one about 4-5 years ago.
Okay.
It was it's incredible.
Yeah, how did it go?
It was. I've never been on a cruise before. It was,
I haven't.
I'd never been to the Caribbean. I've got a studio in England. A small space, and where it rains all the time and it's really cold. England.
And there's the Caribbean.
One day I was in. I got an email from my manager, and he said, "Fancy going on a cruise?" I was like, "Yeah." Yeah.
And the guests and the crowd, were they complimentary? Were they fun to hang out with and such?
Yeah. It was. It's like, well, it's impossible not to have a good time when you're kind of like,
I've seen videos
cruising. It's wild. I mean, it was. White sandy beaches with palm trees. It was like watching a James Bond film. It's like we're from England where it rains every day.
Yeah. So you get some downtime where you can lay on the beach or enjoy beach time.
I'm not a beach kind of person, but just being able to be there and
feel the sun.
Think it's very, very nice.
Now, it's probably cool to reconnect with some of these bands that you maybe toured with too, and you haven't seen in a long time. Because I think the one in March is Berlin, The Alarm. There's like 3 MTV VJs.
Oh, cool.
On there.
And ABC are going on it, I think, aren't they?
Yeah.
And Belinda Carlisle is going to be there as well. And the Human League, who are incredible.
Yeah.
Human League was a kind of bit like modern English. They started off being really weird and wacky.
Yeah. Then you get a hit, and you just look at that and say, wow.
So there's a DVD coming out. Is that correct? Modern English. It's a live DVD.
Yes.
And is this a combination of shows, or is it one concert, or is it a combination?
No, it's one concert. We because of COVID, like most people, we had a schedule planned for last year, and we'd basically we repackaged after the snow, and Mesh and Lace, Ricochet Days, the third album, and we were supposed to go on tour and play After the Snow in its entirety for, a tour across America. And that just couldn't happen because of COVID. And, it was the only way we could kind of, we played together so much, Modern English. We rehearsed together. We're still old friends. And, it was almost an excuse for us to get together as well. We recorded it at the O2 in London at a place called Indigo, which is part of the Dome inside it. An amazing venue. And, it was a kind of, it's just something, it was like normally, each year we do about 2 or 3 tours generally.
Okay.
And so for months and, a year, we've only done one concert in like a year and a half.
Yeah.
And it was quite good that we were able to kind of, market, and kind of say this is what we did during COVID as well.
Yeah, very good.
So, were you working on a new album during COVID, or was that recorded before?
Yeah. Well, that was recorded last September. There was a lot of planning and production had to go into it because of... like in England, all of the law, the rules were changing every week. 1 minute you were allowed to go to the shop, next minute you weren't. You had to stay at home. And so I mean, the fact that we were able to pull it off was quite good. But me and Robbie have, and Gary, I mean, it was like for the last year and a half, it's been so wild. You know, it's like the rules change all the time. Where you had to stay at home, or if you had a dog, you could go out twice a day, take the dog for a walk.
Yeah, get a dog.
It was, I've got a dog, but there was a period where we were allowed to go to work, and so my studio was, you know, it was work. So me, Robbie, and Gary got together. We had 6 weeks of writing and recording demos. So we have material for our next album, which hopefully we're going to start recording in September this year. So there is.
Do you have a title for the album? Can you tell us the title, or you don't have a title? No.
I've got no idea. The titles for LPs are decided like 4 weeks after they've been recorded.
Yeah.
It's like they decided when the printer wants to know what to print on the sleeve.
Yeah.
It's like a visual artwork, however that might be. You know, you create your artwork and then you title it. You know, a lot of artists do that. It's not like I'm going to have a title and now I'm going to create this 3D or 2D, you know, visual art. You know, you just come up with a name for your work at the end.
So you've been pretty busy because you also worked on another album with Piroshka. Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
And that's the second album. And that sounds like it's pretty much completed because that comes out in July.
Yeah. That was we'd also started recording that just as coronavirus was starting to happen. So we ended up recording, finishing that just recording wise, finished it just as the lockdown in England was coming into effect.
Okay.
And any last bits and bobs we had to record ourselves at home and then send them to the studio engineer, who then had to take the studio apart and take it back to his home, basically. And so his spare bedroom became the studio, and we didn't see him. I haven't seen him since the last day of recording, and we told him to mix the whole thing, because he's the one with all the equipment. So, that's finished. The album that's coming out in July.
Excellent
as well.
During the lockdown last year, you did a lockdown version of "I Melt with You." And the proceeds went to the National Independent Venue Association. So a lot of musical artists were pretty much out of work, unless you had the opportunity to record an album. But some bands may not have that opportunity. But so I'm assuming the organization helps musicians get back on their feet again. Is there anything you can tell us about the organization? I know it's through donation.
Not only is it the musicians who were suddenly out of work, it was, every time you see a concert, there's the lighting guy, there's the tour manager, there's the catering, there's, the monitor person, the monitor man or monitor woman at the side of the stage. That makes sure, it's like there's, so much happens, backstage to make the performance of the concert and the enjoyment of the audience. And, quite often when, people go to concerts, you don't consider those people, how the amount of work they put. Someone has, when you turn up at a venue, there's some guy who's been there since like 11 o'clock in the morning, to make sure that the doors are open when the band and the crew and the PA and
and you have people, waiters and waitresses, cooks, cleaners, parking lot attendants. You've got all those people.
Yeah, last night we were watching the Pink documentary. It's a new documentary on the singer, and it's a behind the scenes of her last tour. So you get to see everything that has to go on to make the show, especially her show. She's got the acrobatics going on.
Oh, wow.
But she did mention she has like 150 people, I think, that are depending on her. So, there's a lot of people behind the scenes that, a lot of people don't think of, when you go to a concert, you're just thinking of the band. But a lot of people.
When we did our After the Snow concert for, the DVD, most of the people that worked on the crew, the stage, the film people, the recording, the audio people, I mean, that was their first day that they'd worked in like 9 months as well. Yeah. You know, it was like you're watching these people, like, you know, people who, you know, hump equipment around, you know, push stuff, you know, they hadn't seen each other for like months and months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for them, it was just, you know, confirmation that, you know, what they do is just as important, you know, as, you know, if they weren't there, none of us would have been there.
Yeah. It's revitalizing for them. It's rejuvenating for them. Good to get out. Yeah. Yeah. So we've talked so much about music. Mick, what are you doing when you're not making music? What else are you
Any
into?
hobbies?
It's, you know, it's like right now it's all a bit strange because I'm over here in New York with my fiance Michelle, who's also the Modern English tour manager. So
that's
you know, we've known each other for years. Yeah, yeah. But in the UK, we have we live on a small boat with a dog. Basically, really? And we kind of, yeah.
I didn't see that coming. I thought you were going to say, you know, about a nice little stone home up in the hills, but no, you live on a boat. Excellent. What's your dog's name?
Yeah. Skipper.
On the boat.
So you do a lot of fishing on the boat?
Well, no fishing. Just you know, walking, and I mean, also I have a studio quite close by, and pretty much it's like I live and breathe music. Really, I'll watch news programs and read the newspapers, and you know, I like things that interest me. You know, like nature, art, architecture. You know, hanging out with friends, and you know, so I'm in 2 bands at the moment. So you know, I must really like music.
Yeah. I was just checking that out because the boat, that's what I was fishing for, something like the boat. Yeah. So, in New York State, we have an old friend that went to a college up in Oneonta, New York at Hartwick College. And that's pretty much the center of New York State, but some beautiful places up there too, as well, to travel around and see.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we're just on the other side of the river from the Catskill Mountains, and you know, it's gorgeous up here. You know, me and Michelle, you know, we do lots of exploring. You know, going out, looking, and seeing what's going on in the countryside.
Yeah, excellent.
As well.
Excellent.
So, anything we missed? Do you think that you wanted to talk about, or have we covered?
Well, I mean, I think, one thing that we are excited about is we are actually touring. We're beginning to, you know, we have dates booked. We start on the 31st of August in the Turf Club, Minneapolis. And then we're kind of like going around, you know, the east side. We're playing in Detroit, Chicago, New York, Asbury Park.
Yeah. We're
playing in September. You know, if you're nearby, pop by.
What is the venue in Asbury Park?
Asbury Lanes.
Oh, okay.
I think it's called. Yeah. That's all right.
Yeah. Sounds like a bowling alley. Yeah. Whenever I hear that name, but you know, it's a.
Do you know what? No, tell us about it. I mean, I played there before. It's actually, I think it used to be a bowling alley.
Okay.
That would make sense. Yeah.
I mean, it's like, I mean, the you know, when you play venues and it's got bar and grill written after it, okay. At least I'm going to get some food.
So where can our listeners find Modern English? I mean, you have a website. I know you have an Instagram.
Yeah, and we have a Facebook page as well, Modern English Facebook.
And then they can check out the dates for the upcoming shows. And
Yeah. I mean, also, we do have a website. It's modernenglish.me, M-E, which is like pretty out there. Quite easy to find. Yeah. That kind of stuff.
Thank you, Mick.
Excellent.
It was great talking to you.
Brilliant. Great talking to you as well.
Hopefully we'll see you live.
Yeah. All right. Take care.
Okay. Right. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Mick.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Today's interview was recorded on Zoom and at Did You Say
7
Studios in Washington, New Jersey. Go to the YouTube channel for exclusive video content. You can find Jim and Mike Talk Music on Apple Music, Spotify, Podbean, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Exit music by the band 99%. Today's show was produced and edited by Jim Thatcher.
The songs Moonbeam, Grief, Gathering Dust, Melt With You, and Ricochet Days use with permission from MICK CONROY.